I'm 𝗟𝗽𝗶𝘀𝗃𝗍𝗆, the host of the Leader Leverage podcast. On this show, we'll talk to revenue leaders, company executives, and entrepreneurs to hear how they unlock go-to-market leverage. Let's get started. Welcome to the Leadership Leverage podcast, where we talk to go-to-market leaders and understand where and how they get leverage. So with us today, we have Matt Lopez, who I've worked for in the past at Scale Consulting. And Matt, to get started, tell us, how did you get into leadership?
Yeah, I started working, and first of all, thank you, Andrew, for having me on the podcast. My journey into leadership happened early on in my career. My first role in the professional landscape was working for a startup SaaS company. They were growing very quickly. I started as an account executive, but by year 3, I had moved into kind of a frontline management position that then very quickly turned into building my own office in a different region of the world, and taking on more traditional leadership responsibilities. And so I would say I was thrown into the fire early on in my career, and really haven't looked back since then.
Nice. We're going to talk about some of the lessons and learnings, I'm sure, from that journey and experience that you've had to date. But in terms of getting leverage, we're talking to executives, go-to-market leaders, and just understanding how they unlock leverage to achieve the outcomes that we all need to achieve.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think every business today is trying to figure out how to unlock this concept of leverage. In the scale up growth stage world that many of the companies I talk to on a daily basis live in. The mantra right now is how do we grow efficiently versus this concept of growth at all costs, which has really been the historic model for as long as I can remember in SaaS. And so there's a lot of different ways you can unlock leverage across an organization. But for me personally, the area that I feel has been most transformative lately has been looking at it through the lens of people. And, if you look at how companies have historically built businesses, you generally hire full-time people to be in a role for ideally a very long period of time. I think the expectation is, from the employer side, at least, that they're going to be here for the length of their career. And I just think the reality is right now that is not how a lot of people want to operate. And I also think it's not the most efficient way for businesses either. And so I've really, went headfirst into this world of fractional, over the last 12 months of my life. And it's something I've been involved in one capacity or another over the last, probably 10 years of my life. But I'm seeing companies today unlock leverage and go to market by bringing in fractional CROs and fractional VPs of RevOps and fractional sales enablement managers, and just recognizing that they can get quite a bit of value out of people and quite a bit of productivity out of people in less than full-time capacities.
Interesting. And so going to the next question, and we'll come back on this, biggest leadership loss or lesson, like over your journey as you were getting started, or maybe what opened your eyes to this fractional opportunity?
Yeah, I think that where my eyes were open to it was, I want to say it was maybe 8 or 9 years ago, working for a consulting company, and prospective client, we're talking to them, and we're understanding their needs. We're understanding they want to grow by X% over the next, 12, 24 months. And, they were maybe a smaller scale up, $3, $4, $5 million in revenue at the time. And the CEO basically just called out, look, guys, playbooks sound great. Dashboards sound amazing. Our team needs training. I am the CEO. I can't be the VP of sales as well any longer. It's just not sustainable. And, can I just have one of your people to be my part-time sales leader? And I think that was the light bulb moment for me, was just kind of recognizing that not all problems need to be solved with deliverables. Sometimes it's just a matter of how we structure, people and the types of people we bring into our organization to play a function, that needs to be augmented from the traditional way, we build teams. And so, I think that was certainly a lesson. As I've gotten, at that time, we weren't calling it fractional. Today we do. But I think now that fractional has become something that companies are becoming more familiar with and open-minded to, some of the lessons learned are really, leadership and finding the right leader for your business is not about, finding the person who's got this amazing brand recognition and, has worked in these very recognizable companies. Now they're going to come to our small little startup and teach us how to go from, $1 million in ARR to 100 million over the next, 5 years. Like that just doesn't happen. And so I think a lot of the lessons learned for us have been, relevance in stage is really important when you're bringing in a leader, right? If you're a $5 million company trying to become a $20 million company in the next, 2 or 3 years, go and find the person who's scaled from 5 to 20 numerous times. I think another area has been culture fit is often overlooked. And we talk about culture being important, but a lot of times if you look at how the interview process is set up, it's like, well, where are we actually vetting for this?
Yeah.
And the reality is there are people who should on paper be a really great fit that I've seen completely fail because this organization is really all about candor and directness. And, maybe they're very type A and that's not who this person is. And so, or the opposite, right? And so it creates a lot of friction where that relationship just never gets to a point where they can be successful, even though they have the skills and experience. And then I would just say the last maybe lesson learned has just been industry experience is overrated. It feels good to know that, hey, we sell into healthcare and healthcare is super nuanced. And they've spent the last 15 years of their career in healthcare. But what we have found is a lot of these organizations have that healthcare expertise within the business. And when industry experience is something that we prioritize in bringing on our, leaders, a lot of these other variables that tend to be more correlated to long-term success get overlooked. And so making industry experience a part of what we're vetting for, but making it priority, 4, 5, or 6 has proven to be more successful.
Interesting. I'm curious, Matt, try before you buy, right? Companies, they hire recruitment firms, they spend a whole bunch of effort, resources, and frankly, a ton of money to hire this really expensive executive. And if it's a swing and a miss, it can set your company back years and really put you in a hole. Whereas the try before you buy or the POC, the fractional model, it just seems like it makes sense for both parties, for the potential executive as well as for the company. So are you seeing anything like that where companies are even rethinking how they do everything in going with fractional?
Totally. And I think part of the try before you buy, there's more nuance to it than that too, as to why it makes sense. And like one example of that would be, let's say you want to hire a full-time CRO. You're a $10 million company trying to go to 20. A lot of times to get from 10 to 20, there's a lot of tactical work that needs to get done first, and yeah, we're at $10 million. We have customers, we have a small sales team. We've got CRM set up in a somewhat decent way. And then you go and hire the CRO or the VP of sales and they want to get to strategy on day one. And the reality is a lot of times there's a lot of tactical work that needs to happen first that maybe isn't really the best skills, the most aligned skill for that person. And so sometimes it's a matter of not even just try before you buy. It's like, let's bring in the prerequisite person who's going to stand this up so that when we do bring in that full-time person, they can operate strategically. But yeah, there's definitely an element of try before you buy too, where, we've just found that by bringing in a fractional person for 6 months before you hire that full-time person, especially when you've just come off of maybe a failed hire, or the person that you've had in the role kind of helped you get to a point and then sort of plateau. A lot of times we don't know what we need in the next role. And so we can use the fractional resource to help us calibrate the role as well, where we kind of, get a feel for, what are the elements of this person that we didn't think were important, but now we're starting to notice that they are. And what are the elements of this person that we did think are important and now we realize probably are not. So yeah, it definitely gives you that opportunity to just kind of calibrate the role, document it in a way where you're doing it based off of an observation of what's already working, and also have that person there to help you hire the next person and onboard the next person. I mean, no sales leader on the planet has ever had their predecessor onboard them.
Makes sense. I'm working with a client that on sort of a similar model to what you mentioned, to do some restructure, to align the team, to get the technology and process in place. And then they're going to be looking for a full-time person that I'll be involved in that process and handhold them to get them off to a fast start and allow them to do the strategy and the quote unquote fun stuff.
Totally.
Nice. Well, this has been a great conversation so far. This is a rapid episode or podcast. It's less than 15 minutes. So to close it out, we're going to go to the rapid fire. Are you ready?
I think so.
All right. Matt, what is more valuable to you, process or tools?
Process.
What do you do for fun?
Play with my kids.
Okay. How many kids do you have?
2, and I don't know if I'm ready to announce this, but whatever, a third's on the way.
Okay. I'll announce it on mine as well, is that I'm having my first kid in September. So
All right.
Exclusive, podcast exclusive for all the listeners. Thank you. Favorite thing in your home office, Matt? And you can't say that ugly Giants helmet up top because I'm a Patriots fan. This is a Patriots podcast. So besides that, what's your favorite thing?
All right. I guess then it's going to have to be this this little award here I got at my last employer, Scaled Pinnacle Performer Award, that no one can read, I'm sure, from the camera. So they just think I've got like this weird little statue behind me. But sure, why not? My Pinnacle Performer Award.
Matt hired me at Scale Consulting, so I'm very appreciative for that and had an amazing run. Matt, you were there for, you work with the team. I think you still may be, but it was just an amazing sales and go-to-market consulting firm. And Jake and what the team had built there, it's really inspiring. And so Matt had a really great run.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, 10 years. So it was a
10 years in consulting is like 100 years, because I think you learn 10 times faster in consulting, right?
It feels like that.
Okay. Matt, who inspires you?
Man, that's a tough one. Who inspires me? I think I try to, honestly, this is probably not the most exciting answer, but the reality is I try to find inspiration every day, and it's probably not some, profound answer or person. It's probably just like every day, just little things in a conversation like this that you learn something new. I hear something new, and it just kind of gives me that little bit of inspiration of, I'm going to try that. So I was having interviews earlier today, and a candidate shared a question he uses in the way he drives momentum that I'd never heard before. I was like, wow, it's actually something that I could totally see working. So
jot that down from the candidates, from the clients, from the partners, from your network. That's good. All right. Matt, let's close it off with, tell us what you're building. I think you talked about the why before, but tell us about what you're building, and for folks that might be interested after this 10-minute conversation who might want to learn more.
Yeah, so I'm building a company called Revenue Nomad. We've been up and running for about a year now. The vision here has really been to create a marketplace of on-demand go-to-market experts. There is a ton of talent on the market right now, as you can imagine. Since 2020, especially in tech, it's been pretty volatile. And what I've seen is just some of the most talented go-to-market leaders, whether it's CMOs, CROs, enablement folks, RevOps folks, sales ops folks, all of a sudden are just kind of have made that decision that all of a sudden they're like, I'm going to bet on myself. And, I want to go out and, whatever they're calling it, freelance, fractional consulting, et cetera. But they're going out there and realizing they have this amazing skill set, this amazing experience, and they want to work in a world where maybe they're working 30 hours a week instead of 60, and they want to work with 2 companies that they really enjoy working with versus spending the next 5 years working with one. And so I really wanted to create a home for those people to build their digital footprint, their resume in a format where they can connect with different companies who are growing and scaling and have these acute and timely needs to bring in these people in a fractional capacity for 6, 12, 18 months, et cetera, and really help, be that specialized resource who can help them unlock whatever it is that they're working through, but also right size, the level of support they need and not feel the burden of hiring these people full time when maybe they don't have the budget to do it or the need to do it.
Absolutely. What a cool service. It's not like it's innovative for sure. So I think you have to do a lot of education, but it makes sense once you realize what the risks are of making that full-time hire or that mishire, that why wouldn't you take a more of a crawl, walk, run approach into the hiring?
Totally.
All right. Thanks, Matt. We'll share the information in the show notes and get this pushed out there.
Appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Leader Leverage Podcast. If you'd like to connect or learn more, you can find me on LinkedIn at 𝗵𝗄𝗄𝗍𝗆, or you can check out and subscribe at 𝗬𝗲𝗍.com. That's www.𝗬𝗲𝗍.com.